A cowboy found a lost Apache girl in the forest. When he learned who she was, he was shocked. Jack Thompson was a cowboy who had spent most of his life roaming the wide-open plains and thick forests near the frontier. His face was tanned and weathered from years under the harsh sun, and his hands were rough and strong from working with horses and cattle. He was known among the small frontier towns as a man of courage and fairness, someone who could handle danger, yet had a soft heart for those in need. Most days, Jack traveled alone, following his herd or hunting for game, finding comfort in the quiet of nature and the simple life of a cowboy. On this particular morning, Jack woke up early, as he always did before the sun had fully risen. First, the sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, and the forest around him was still, except for the occasional chirp of a bird or rustle of leaves in the wind. He mounted his horse, a strong chestnut stallion named Thunder, and began leading his small herd of cattle through the dense forest. The path was narrow and overgrown, but Jack knew it well. He had spent years learning every tree, every creek, and every hidden trail. As he guided the cattle along a winding path, Jack noticed something unusual. Among the sounds of the forest there was a faint cry, a small, trembling voice that did not belong to the animals. He paused, listening carefully. The sound came again, soft but urgent. It was the voice of a child, calling for help. Jack's heart tightened. He knew the forest could be dangerous, and a child alone could not survive long here. Breath. Without a second thought, he followed the voice, moving carefully between the thick trees and fallen branches. After a few minutes of careful searching, Jack finally saw her. She was a young girl, sitting on the ground beside a small stream, her legs pulled close to her chest. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and her face was streaked with tears and mud. Her dark hair fell over her eyes, and she looked up at Jack with wide, frightened eyes. Breaths. She was small and thin, and it was clear she had been alone for some time. Jack could see the fear in her gaze, but there was also a spark of determination. She was clearly strong, even if scared. Jack dismounted and approached slowly, speaking in a calm, gentle voice. "Hey there, little one." "My name is Jack. Don't be afraid." Breaking. "I'm here to help you." The girl flinched at first, taking a small step back. She clutched a small bundle of what appeared to be scraps of cloth, holding it tightly to her chest. Jack noticed the bundle contained a few simple belongings, possibly all she had left. He knelt a few feet away from her, showing that he meant no harm. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "Do you need water? Food?" The girl shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. She did not speak at first, only staring at him. Jack realized she might not trust strangers, or perhaps she did not know how to speak his language. He remembered stories of settlers and tribes and how sometimes children were separated from their families during raids or attacks. He understood she might be frightened of anyone, even someone trying to help. Jack reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small piece of bread and a canteen of water. He set them a few feet away from him on a rock and stepped back. "You can take it if you're hungry or thirsty," he said. The girl watched him carefully, hesitant but curious. Her stomach growled, and she looked at the bread, then back at Jack. After a long moment, she slowly crawled toward the food, keeping her eyes on him the whole time. Jack sat quietly, giving her space. When she finally reached the bread, she took it quickly and began eating. Jack smiled quietly to himself, relieved that she was at least willing to accept his help. After she had eaten, he offered her a sip of water. She drank cautiously, and Jack could see the tension in her body slowly easing. Once she had eaten and drunk, Jack tried to learn more about her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl looked down, hesitant, and shook her head. Jack understood that it would take time, She had probably been through a lot, and trust was something she could not give easily. "I'll stay with you," Jack said, his voice steady. "You don't have to be afraid. I'll help you."
The girl seemed to sense the truth in his words.
She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. Jack could see that she was exhausted, and he realized that she had likely been wandering the forest for a long time. He decided it was best to help her find a safe place to rest. Carefully, he helped her to her feet. She was surprisingly light, almost as if she had been surviving on very little for some time. Jack wrapped a blanket around her shoulders to protect her from the morning chill. She shivered slightly, and he realized she had not had proper warmth for days, maybe even weeks. As they began walking through the forest, Jack kept a careful watch for danger. The forest was beautiful, with sunlight filtering through the tall trees, but it was also full of hidden risks. There were sharp rocks, thorny bushes, and the occasional wild animal. Jack held her hand gently, guiding her and keeping her close. He spoke softly, telling her about the forest, the animals, and even a little about himself. "Best. I've been riding these trails for years," he said. "I know where the streams are, where the berries grow, and where it's safe to sleep at night."
"You'll be safe with me." The girl listened quietly, occasionally glancing up at him.
Breaths. She seemed to relax a little more with every step. Jack noticed that she had a small scar on her arm, and her clothes were patched in places, telling the story of hardship she had endured.
He admired her courage. She had survived alone in the forest, which would have been difficult for anyone, let alone a child.
As they walked, Jack spotted a small clearing near a stream. He decided it would be a good place to rest for a while. He helped her sit down and unpacked a few supplies from his saddlebag, some dried meat, a small knife, and a blanket. He made a small fire, careful to keep it controlled, and told her she could rest while he kept watch. The girl watched the flames dance in the morning sunlight. Jack could see the mixture of fear and wonder in her eyes. She had been alone for so long that even a small fire in someone's company felt strange but comforting. Jack sat quietly, thinking about the journey ahead. He knew that helping this girl would not be easy. He did not yet know who she was or how she came to be lost in the forest, but he knew one thing for certain: he would not leave her alone. Hours passed, and the girl finally curled up under the blanket, her head resting on Jack's lap. He watched her sleep, feeling a strange sense of responsibility and care. The forest was calm, but he remained alert, knowing that the wilderness could be unpredictable. Jack thought about the long path ahead. He would need to find her family, or at least a safe place for her. But for now, his priority was simple: keep her safe, fed, and warm. As the sun began to set, casting golden light through the trees, Jack felt a mix of exhaustion and determination. He knew that the journey to help this girl would be long and challenging, but he also felt a quiet hope. Somehow he believed that finding her family, or even helping her survive this ordeal, would be worth every effort. That night, under the stars and the gentle sounds of the forest, Jack kept watch over the little girl. She slept peacefully, unaware of the dangers she had narrowly escaped. Jack Thompson, the cowboy who had lived a life of independence and solitude, felt something he had never felt before: a deep, protective connection to a stranger who needed him. And he knew, without a doubt, that he would do everything in his power to keep her safe. The forest around them was dark and quiet, but within that quiet, a bond began to form. A bond that would guide them through the trials ahead. Jack did not yet know the girl's name, her past, or the adventures that awaited them. But he understood one thing clearly: he would not let anything happen to her. And so, under the soft glow of the stars, their journey began. The next morning, the forest was alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. Jack woke early, as he always did, and carefully checked on the girl. She was still asleep. curled under the blanket he had given her. Her chest rose and fell gently with each breath, and Jack could see the fatigue from her long ordeal written clearly on her face. He smiled softly, relieved that she had slept through the night without any incident. Jack knew they could not stay in one place for long. The forest was beautiful, but it could be dangerous for a lone child. Wild animals roamed, and hidden hazards like steep cliffs and rivers could catch someone unprepared. He gently shook her shoulder. "It's time to wake up," he said softly. The girl stirred, blinking at the sunlight streaming through the trees. For a moment she looked around, confused before recognizing him. Jack offered her a small piece of bread he had saved from the previous day. "Eat something before we start moving," he said. But the girl took it cautiously, nibbling while keeping her eyes on him. He could see she was still wary, still unsure if she could fully trust anyone. Jack understood. He had seen fear in people's eyes many times, and he knew that trust was earned, not demanded. After she had eaten, Jack packed their small belongings and helped her to her feet. She was surprisingly steady on her feet, considering how little she had eaten in days. Jack noticed the way she moved, quick and careful, almost like she had been trained to survive in the wild. Her eyes were alert, scanning the forest around them, and Jack realized that she had instincts far beyond her years. "All right," he said. "We need to get to a safer place." "I know a trail that leads to a small town not too far from here. From there, we can figure out what to do next." The girl said nothing at first, but she nodded slightly and Jack could see a mixture of relief and determination in her eyes. She trusted him enough to follow, and that was all he could ask for. He led the way, holding her hand when the trail became uneven or slippery. The forest was thick with trees, their branches forming a canopy above, and sunlight filtered through in patches, casting moving patterns on the ground. Birds sang, and the occasional squirrel darted across their path, but the peace of the forest did not hide the dangers that lay ahead. As they walked, Jack tried to make conversation, knowing that small talk could help ease her fear. "Do you know how to ride a horse?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "No," she said softly, her voice barely audible. Jack smiled. "That's all right. You'll learn someday."
He could see a spark of curiosity in her eyes. Even in her fear, she wanted to understand the world around her.
Jack admired that. He had spent years learning the ways of the forest, and he knew that surviving in it required not just strength, but cleverness and observation. They traveled for hours, moving slowly through the dense forest. Jack noticed how she reacted to every sound. The rustle of leaves, the snapping of a twig, the distant cry of a bird. He realized that she had been alone for so long that every sound was a possible threat. He tried to reassure her with gentle words and calm movements, showing her that the forest could be navigated safely if you were careful. At one point, they came across a small stream. The water was clear and cool, running over smooth stones. Jack knelt beside it and dipped his hands into the water, motioning for the girl to do the same. "Drink," he said. "It's fresh and safe." She bent down cautiously and took a sip, her reflection wavering in the water. Jack watched her closely, noticing how tense her muscles were, how alert she remained even while drinking. It reminded him of how children in the frontier often had to grow up quickly, learning to survive in ways most people never could. After quenching her thirst, they continued on. Jack pointed out small details of the forest as they walked: edible plants, tracks of animals, and signs of danger. The girl listened intently, her eyes wide with fascination. She asked questions in a small voice, and Jack answered patiently, explaining everything simply so she could understand. As the day wore on, Jack noticed that the girl seemed to tire easily. Her steps became slower and she occasionally stumbled over roots and rocks. He offered to carry her, but she shook her head. "I can walk," she said firmly. though Jack could see the strain in her movements.
Bert. He respected her determination. She wanted to show strength, even if it was difficult for her.
They finally reached a small clearing as the sun began to dip toward the horizon. Jack decided it was a good place to rest for the night. He helped the girl sit down and unpack their small supplies. They shared a simple meal, dried meat, bread, and water, while sitting by the edge of the clearing. Jack made sure she ate enough, knowing that her strength depended on it. As they ate, Jack tried to learn more about her.
You're very smart, he said gently. Do you live around here? The girl shook her head again.
Jack noticed a flicker of sadness in her eyes, but she looked away quickly. He understood that some questions could not be answered yet, and he chose not to push. Instead, he focused on keeping her safe and comfortable. After the meal, Jack gathered some dry wood and started a small fire. The flames flickered and danced in the evening light, casting warmth over the clearing. He motioned for the girl to sit close, but not too near the fire. But she hesitated at first, but eventually moved closer, watching the flames with quiet fascination. Jack noticed that she was slowly beginning to relax, her shoulders losing some of the tension they had held all day. He told her stories of his life on the frontier, about the cattle he had herded, the storms he had ridden through, and the times he had faced danger alone. The girl listened quietly, occasionally asking a question or pointing to something in the forest she found interesting. Jack could see her curiosity growing, and it gave him hope that she would survive the challenges ahead. Night fell, and the forest grew dark and quiet. Jack kept watch while the girl slept under the blanket, her head resting on a small bundle he had made for her. He stayed alert, listening for any sounds that might signal danger, wild animals, distant voices, or the snapping of branches. The forest could be unforgiving, but Jack was determined to keep her safe. As he sat by the fire, Jack reflected on the girl's strength. Despite her fear and the hardships she had endured, she had survived alone in the forest. That alone was remarkable. He felt a growing sense of admiration and protectiveness. He knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but he was willing to face any challenge to help her. The girl stirred in her sleep, and Jack gently adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. He watched her for a long time, thinking about the road ahead. He did not know her name or her story yet, but he understood that she was special, strong, clever, and brave. Somehow he felt a deep connection forming between them, a bond built on trust, care, and survival. The night was quiet, except for the soft sounds of the forest. Jack could hear the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the gentle babbling of the stream nearby. He felt a strange sense of peace amidst the uncertainty, knowing that he was doing the right thing by staying with the girl. When dawn arrived, Jack woke early again. The girl was already awake, sitting quietly by the fire, watching the sunrise. He smiled at her and offered a small breakfast. They ate in silence for a while, both of them lost in their thoughts. Then Jack helped her pack their belongings, ready to continue the journey. The path ahead would be long, but Jack felt confident that together they could face whatever challenges lay in wait. He held her hand as they moved through the forest, guiding her past obstacles, teaching her about the world around them, and slowly earning her trust. The girl began to respond more, speaking in small phrases, asking questions, and showing glimpses of her personality. By the end of the second day, Jack realized that the girl had grown more comfortable in his presence. She still had moments of fear, but she also showed courage and resilience that impressed him greatly. He knew that their journey was far from over, but he felt hopeful. Together they could navigate the forest, face dangers, and perhaps even uncover the story of who she really was. As they set up camp that night, Jack felt a deep sense of responsibility and care. The bond between them was growing stronger, built on trust, kindness, and shared experiences. He knew that the girl depended on him, and he was determined not to let anything happen to her. The forest was vast and unpredictable, but with patience, courage, and careful planning, he believed they could overcome any obstacle. And so, under the quiet night sky, with the stars shining above, Jack Thompson and the lost girl rested, ready to continue their journey. Brass. The forest was full of mysteries and challenges, but they would face them together, step by step, learning to trust one another and discovering the strength they both carried within. The morning sun broke through the trees, casting golden light over the forest, as Jack and the girl continued their journey. Jack had begun to notice small changes in her behavior over the past few days. She was slowly becoming more confident, speaking in small phrases and even asking him questions about the world around them. Her fear was still present, but it was accompanied by curiosity and intelligence. Jack found himself admiring her quiet strength. They had been traveling for several hours when Jack decided it was time to reach the edge of the forest. He hoped that, from there, they could find signs of nearby towns or settlements where someone might know about the girl. The forest, though beautiful, was vast and unpredictable, and he wanted to ensure her safety by moving towards civilization. As they walked, the girl suddenly stopped and stared at a set of footprints in the soft earth. Jack bent down to look. The tracks were small but deliberate, leading deeper into the forest before disappearing toward a narrow path. He frowned, studying them carefully. "These tracks, they're fresh," Jack said quietly. "Someone has been here recently."
Do you know who it might be?
The girl shook her head but followed him closely as he carefully traced the path. Jack's instincts told him that this could be important. Perhaps it was someone searching for her, or maybe just another traveler in the forest. Either way, it was something he needed to be aware of. As they continued, the trail led them to a small clearing where the sunlight glimmered off the surface of a shallow stream. Jack noticed signs of a recent camp, broken twigs, a few scattered pieces of cloth, and footprints leading away. He realized someone had been here not long ago. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. Who could it have been? Could it have anything to do with the girl's past? The girl clung to his side, her small hand gripping his tightly. Jack looked down at her and offered a reassuring smile. "Don't worry. We'll be safe."
I'll protect you. After a few more hours of cautious travel, they reached the outskirts of a small town.
The streets were dusty, and the wooden buildings looked worn but sturdy. People were busy with their daily chores, tending to horses, loading wagons, and talking quietly with one another. Jack led the girl carefully through the town, hoping to find someone who could provide information or assistance.
They stopped near a small trading post.
Jack approached the counter and spoke with the trader, a middle-aged man with kind eyes.
"Excuse me," Jack said. "I found this girl in the forest a few days ago."
"Brask. She seems lost. Do you know anything about her or anyone looking for a child?" The trader looked at the girl closely, his expression changing from curiosity to surprise. He stepped closer, squinting at her features.
Wait!
"I think I've seen her before," he said slowly. She might be the daughter of Chief Tani, the Apache leader. She went missing during a raid several months ago." Jack froze.
The name rang a bell from stories he had heard while traveling through the region. Chief Tani was known as a respected leader of his people, wise and brave.
Jack could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice steady but tinged with disbelief. The trader nodded. "I've seen pictures and descriptions. If this is her, she's been missing for a long time. People have been searching everywhere for her." "Yeah. You need to be careful. This is serious." Jack felt a chill run through him. He had found the girl in the forest, weak, scared, and alone. He had no idea of her identity until now. And now, knowing who she was, he realized that returning her safely could be more complicated than he had imagined. He looked down at the girl, who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. She did not understand the weight of the revelation yet, but Jack did. He bought some supplies from the trader, food, fresh water, and a small bag to carry their belongings. Then he led the girl out of the town, careful to avoid attracting attention. Jack knew that if people realized who she was, it could put them both in danger. There were always those who sought power, revenge, or advantage, and the child of a chief could be a target. As they walked, Jack spoke gently to her.
"You're very brave,"
he said. "I need you to trust me. We're going to find your family and make sure you're safe. Can you do that?" The girl nodded slowly, though Jack could see the confusion in her eyes. She did not understand what he had just learned, but she trusted him. That trust was something Jack held sacred. He knew he had to protect her, no matter what. Over the next few hours, Jack and the girl navigated through the forest carefully, avoiding main roads and settlements where unwanted attention could arise. Jack told her small stories to keep her calm, talking about the animals, the streams, and the plants they passed. The girl listened intently, occasionally asking questions about things she saw along the way. She seemed more relaxed now, comforted by Jack's presence and the rhythm of their journey. As the afternoon sun began to dip, Jack spotted a familiar landmark, a large twisted oak tree near a hidden trail. He had used this path before when he traveled through the forest, and he knew it would lead them closer to the Apache lands. He motioned for the girl to follow quietly.
Along the way, Jack thought about the implications of what he had learned.
The girl was the daughter of Chief Tani, a prominent figure among the Apache people. Her disappearance could have caused great distress to her family and her tribe. Jack understood the importance of getting her back safely. He also realized that some might see him as a threat, an outsider interfering in matters they did not understand. He needed to be cautious, yet he could not abandon the girl now. As night approached, they found a small clearing to rest. Jack started a fire, as he had done before, and offered the girl some food. She ate quietly, still processing the new information that Jack had shared with her. She did not fully understand the significance of her identity yet, but she could sense that something important had changed. Jack sat beside her, keeping watch as she ate. "You're safe with me," he said softly. "No one is going to hurt you while I'm here." "I promise." The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide and filled with a mix of fear and trust. Jack could see that she was beginning to rely on him completely. That realization strengthened his resolve. He had already faced dangerous situations before, but nothing compared to the responsibility he now carried. This child's safety depended entirely on him. Later that night, as the stars twinkled above the forest, Jack reflected on how quickly their lives had changed. A few days ago, he had been riding alone through the forest, concerned only with his cattle and survival. Now he was tasked with protecting the child of a powerful chief, navigating dangers he had never imagined. Yet, despite the fear and uncertainty, he felt a quiet determination. He would do whatever it took to return her safely. The girl, exhausted from the day's journey, curled up under her blanket and fell asleep. Jack remained awake, watching the fire and listening to the sounds of the forest. He thought about the trader's warning and the possible dangers that lay ahead, but he also thought about the girl's courage and resilience. She had survived alone for days in the forest, and he had no doubt she could endure whatever challenges came next, with his help. As he sat there, Jack realized that their journey was no longer just about survival. It was about trust, courage, and the bond they had formed. The girl had come to rely on him, and he had come to care for her deeply.
He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that together They could face whatever lay in store.
By the time the first light of dawn broke over the forest, Jack had made a plan. They would continue moving toward the lands where the Apache tribe lived, keeping to hidden paths and avoiding main roads. He would make sure the girl remained safe, fed, and rested. And when the time came to reunite her with her family, he would be there, ready to face whatever challenges that reunion might bring. As they set off once more, Jack felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. The girl walked beside him, her steps steadier than they had been in the past days. Though she did not fully understand the revelation of her identity, Jack knew she sensed that something significant had changed. He kept talking to her softly, guiding her through the forest and teaching her small survival lessons along the way. With every step, the bond between Jack and the girl grew stronger. The forest stretched endlessly around them, filled with dangers and wonders alike, but they faced it together. And in that quiet shared determination, Jack knew that no matter what lay ahead, he would not abandon the girl. Her identity, her past, and the journey to reunite her with her family were now part of his life, and he was ready to face the challenges that awaited. The forest was quiet that morning, with the soft light of dawn filtering through the trees. Jack Thompson and the young girl continued their journey, moving carefully along the hidden trails he knew so well. Jack had spent hours thinking the night before, weighing his options. Returning the girl to her family was no longer just about survival. It had become a delicate matter of trust, safety, and responsibility. Jack glanced at the girl, who was walking beside him, her small hands clutching a bundle of belongings. She had grown more confident over the past days, but her eyes still held the flicker of fear, a reminder that she had been alone for too long. Jack felt a pang of protectiveness. The thought of anyone harming her made his chest tighten. He realized that helping her reach her family safely might not be as simple as he had first imagined. He had learned from the trader in town that some people might still pose a threat, bound in conflicts with the Apache tribe, and who might try to take advantage of the girl's return for their own purposes. Jack knew he had to be careful. Every step they took needed to be calculated, every decision deliberate. He could not allow himself to be careless. "Bah. Listen," Jack said softly, breaking the silence. "We need to be smart about this. Your family is very important, and there are people who might try to stop us or cause trouble. We'll take hidden paths, move quietly, and avoid main roads until we're close to your tribe. Can you do that?"
The girl nodded.
She did not speak much, but her eyes showed determination. She trusted Jack, and that trust gave him strength. But he had seen children survive under impossible conditions before, but he had never encountered one as resilient as her. Her courage inspired him, and he felt more determined than ever to protect her. As they walked, Jack thought about the journey ahead. They would have to cross rivers, climb steep hills, and move through dense forest where visibility was limited. Each obstacle carried its own dangers, but Jack had spent years navigating these lands. He had faced storms, wild animals, and hostile encounters, and he knew how to survive. He also knew that the girl's safety depended not only on his skill, but on her learning to trust him completely. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A small river blocked their path, the water rushing rapidly over smooth rocks. Jack stopped and studied the river carefully. Crossing it would be tricky, but he knew it was possible. He turned to the girl and offered his hand. "Hold on tight," he said. "I'll help you across." The girl hesitated, her small hands trembling slightly. She looked at the water, then at Jack, and finally nodded. Jack led her carefully, step by step, guiding her across the slippery rocks. He kept one hand on her and the other balanced on a nearby branch. When they reached the other side safely, the girl let out a small laugh of relief. Jack smiled, glad to see her momentarily forget her fear. They continued walking, moving quietly to avoid drawing attention. Jack explained to the girl why they had to stay off the main trails. "People don't always understand," he said. Sometimes they see strangers and assume the worst. We don't want anyone to interfere with our journey. You need to stay close to me, no matter what." The girl nodded, her eyes serious. She had learned quickly to follow his instructions, recognizing that his guidance was keeping her safe. Jack could see that her trust in him was growing, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility. He could not fail her. As they traveled deeper into the forest, Jack noticed signs of the land changing. The trees were taller, the underbrush thicker, and the paths less defined. It was clear that they were approaching the lands where the Apache tribe lived. Jack slowed his pace, moving even more cautiously. But he knew that as they got closer, the risks could increase. Some people might recognize the girl, and not everyone would have good intentions. That afternoon, they stopped at a small clearing to rest. Jack gathered some dry wood and started a fire, careful to keep it small and controlled. The girl sat nearby, watching the flames flicker. Jack handed her a small piece of bread and some dried meat. She ate quietly, her eyes focused on the fire but occasionally glancing at him. "You're very brave," Jack said softly. "Not many children could survive like you have. You've done well." The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide, but she did not fully understand the weight of her bravery. But Jack could see that she felt proud. He smiled, encouraging her silently. He wanted her to know that courage was not just about facing danger. It was about enduring hardship, trusting the right people, and making careful choices. As night fell, Jack knew they could not stay in one place too long. The forest could be unforgiving, and the longer they lingered, the more risk they faced. He decided they would move quietly under the cover of darkness, using the moonlight to guide them. He wrapped a blanket around the girl's shoulders and took her hand. "We'll rest for a short while," he said. "Then we'll continue. You need to be ready." The girl nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of trust and determination. Jack felt a quiet pride in her resilience. She had already endured so much, yet she continued to move forward, step by step, trusting him completely. That trust was something Jack would never take lightly. Under the silver glow of the moon, they moved carefully through the forest. Jack led the way, scanning for any signs of danger. He knew that as they approached the Apache lands, they had to be especially cautious. There could be people who meant harm, or even those who might mistake him for a threat. He had to ensure the girl's safety above all else. Hours passed as they traveled quietly, the forest alive with nocturnal sounds. Owls hooted in the distance, and the rustle of leaves accompanied their every step. Jack remained alert, constantly scanning the surroundings. The girl walked beside him, her small hand firmly in his. He could feel her trust and reliance on him, and it strengthened his resolve. At one point, they came across a narrow ridge overlooking a valley. Jack paused, studying the terrain below. He realized that this path could take them closer to the tribe, but it also presented risks. They could be seen from a distance, and any mistake could alert the wrong people. He knelt beside the girl, pointing quietly. "See that valley?" he said. "We need to move carefully through it. Stay close to me and do exactly what I say." The girl nodded, her eyes serious. She understood the importance of following his instructions. Jack guided her down the ridge slowly, using every skill he had learned from years in the wilderness. He found safe footing, tested the ground before stepping, and kept the girl close at every turn. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the valley floor safely. The girl let out a small sigh of relief. Jack smiled, silently praising her courage and composure. "We're doing well," he said. "Almost there." As dawn approached, Jack knew they had to rest briefly. They found a small hidden grove shielded by thick trees and bushes. Jack made a small fire and offered the girl food and water. She ate quietly, her trust in him evident. Breaths. Jack sat beside her, thinking about the final steps of their journey. They were close to her tribe, but the final approach could be the most dangerous part. He knew that once they reached the Apache lands, he would have to approach carefully. The girl's safety depended on his ability to navigate this delicate situation. He also knew that the reunion with her family would be emotional, and he needed to ensure it happened without harm. Jack spent the rest of the morning preparing for the final leg of their journey. He gathered supplies, studied the terrain, and explained to the girl what to expect.
"We're almost there," he said gently. Where?
You'll see your family soon, but we need to be careful. Follow me, and don't be afraid. The girl nodded, her eyes filled with both excitement and apprehension. Jack felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had guided her this far, and he would not let anything stop him from seeing her safely reunited with her family. As they set off again, Jack reflected on how much had changed in the past few days. A few days ago, he had been riding alone through the forest, concerned only with his cattle. But now he was guiding a child through dangerous territory, protecting her from harm, and preparing for a delicate reunion with her family. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but Jack felt ready. He had grown attached to the girl, and he knew that keeping her safe was the most important thing he could do. With every step, the bond between Jack and the girl grew stronger. She had come to rely on him completely, and he had learned to trust in her courage and resilience. Together, they navigated the forest, prepared to face the challenges of the final leg of their journey. Jack knew that the path ahead would test them both, but he also knew that they could succeed, step by step, guided by trust, patience, and courage. And so, as the sun rose high above the forest, Jack Thompson led the girl onward, determined to keep her safe and return her to her family, no matter the risks. The journey had been long and difficult, but the hardest part, the decision to face danger, to protect her, was now behind him. Ahead lay the reunion, the resolution, and the final challenge that would test their courage, trust, and bond. The sun was rising over the horizon, casting warm, golden light across the forest. Jack Thompson and the young girl moved carefully through the final stretch of the trail. Jack had spent the night planning their approach, knowing that the Apache village was near and that the reunion could be both joyous and delicate. He glanced at the girl, who walked beside him with quiet determination. Bright. She had grown more confident over the journey, but Jack could see the mixture of hope and nervousness in her eyes. "Almost there," Jack whispered. "Stay close to me and don't be afraid." The girl nodded, her small hand clutching the bundle of belongings they had carried all this time. Jack felt a deep surge of protectiveness. He had guided her through dangerous forests, across rivers and over ridges, and he knew the final steps were the most important. One wrong move could put them at risk, but he trusted that careful planning and calm would see them through. As they approached the edge of the forest, they could see the Apache village in the distance. Smoke rose gently from small fires, and the wooden structures of the village were surrounded by open fields. Jack slowed his pace, scanning the area for potential risks. He wanted to avoid startling anyone and ensure a safe approach for the girl. Jack knelt beside her and spoke softly. "We'll walk slowly now. Soon you'll see your family. Just follow my lead." The girl's eyes widened at the sight of the village. She stopped for a moment, unsure of what to do. Bears. Jack gently squeezed her shoulder. "It's all right," he said. Breath.
"They're your family. You're safe."
Together, they moved toward the village along a hidden path that Jack knew would keep them out of view. As they approached, he could see people starting to notice movement near the forest edge.
paused in their work, and a few men looked toward the trees. Jack kept a steady pace, ensuring the girl stayed calm and composed. Suddenly, a woman broke from the group, running toward them with her arms outstretched. Jack's heart raced as he watched her. The girl froze for a moment, and then recognition sparked in her eyes. The woman's face was filled with relief and joy as she reached the girl and swept her into a tight embrace.
Child! You're safe!
"You've come back!" the woman cried, tears streaming down her face. The girl clung to the woman, sobbing quietly, as Jack stepped back to give them space for it. Jack watched the reunion, feeling a mixture of relief and emotion. After days of fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, the girl was finally home. He could see the gratitude and joy on the faces of the villagers as they surrounded the girl, welcoming her back. A tall man dressed in traditional Apache attire stepped forward. Jack recognized him immediately from the trader's description, Chief Tani, the girl's father. The chief's eyes were filled with both concern and relief as he looked at the child in his arms. Jack stepped forward slowly, lowering his head slightly in respect. "You have returned her to us," the chief said, his voice steady but warm. "We owe you a great debt." Jack nodded. "I found her in the forest, alone and frightened."
I made sure she was safe, and I brought her here.
The chief studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You are brave and honorable, Jack Thompson. You have risked much to protect my daughter." "We are grateful." Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. The tension of the past days, the careful navigation through the forest, and the constant vigilance, all of it had led to this moment. The girl was safe, her family was whole again, and the journey was complete. The villagers gathered around, offering food, water, and blankets. Jack watched as the girl was given a warm meal and fresh clothes. She smiled shyly at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. Jack knelt beside her and whispered, "You're safe now, Base. I'm proud of you." The girl hugged him tightly, and for a moment Jack felt a bond stronger than anything he had experienced before. He had guided her through danger, taught her to trust, and now he was seeing the fruits of that effort in her safety and happiness. Chief Tani approached Jack and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are welcome here," he said. "Your courage and kindness will not be forgotten. Our people will honor you for what you have done."
Jack nodded humbly. "I only did what anyone would do," he said softly.
I couldn't leave her alone in the forest.
The chief smiled. "That is true courage. Not for glory or reward, but for doing what is right." Jack spent the day in the village, helping to ensure the girl was comfortable and safe. He shared small stories of their journey with the chief and the villagers, explaining how he had found her in the forest and guided her back.
The villagers listened attentively, clearly impressed by both the girl's bravery and Jack's determination.
Throughout the day, the girl remained close to Jack, occasionally asking questions or pointing out things she remembered from their journey. Jack answered patiently, smiling at her curiosity. He could see that she felt secure now, surrounded by her family and the welcoming community of her tribe. As the sun began to set, Jack took a quiet moment to reflect. He walked to the edge of the village, looking out at the forest that had been their home and their challenge for the past several days. He thought about the rivers they had crossed, the ridges they had climbed, and the moments of fear and uncertainty. He realized how much the journey had changed him. He had always considered himself independent, someone who relied on his skills and wits to survive. But this journey had taught him something new. Courage was not just about facing danger. It was about protecting others, earning trust, and caring deeply for someone who depended on you. He had felt fear, responsibility, and hope, all at the same time. And he had survived, not alone, but because he had learned to guide and protect another. The girl approached him, her small hand reaching out. "Thank you," she said softly.
For helping me? Jack smiled, kneeling to her level. You helped yourself too, he said.
You were brave every step of the way. The girl smiled shyly, then ran back to her family. Jack watched her, feeling a sense of fulfillment he could not describe.
He had saved her, guided her, and now he could see the joy and relief on her family's faces. That was reward enough.
Chief Tani approached once more as Jack prepared to leave the village. You have done more than we could ever ask, the chief said. You have earned the respect and gratitude of our people. You are always welcome here. Jack nodded. Brasp. It was my honor, he said. I'm just glad she's safe. As Jack mounted his horse, he took one last look at the village. The girl waved at him from a distance, smiling brightly. Jack waved back, feeling a mixture of pride and contentment. The forest had been dangerous, the journey long, and the challenges many, but he had succeeded. He had brought a lost child home, and in doing so had discovered a new sense of courage and purpose within himself. The ride back into the forest was quiet. Jack guided his horse along the familiar trails, thinking about the journey and the bond he had formed with the girl. He knew he would carry the memory of this adventure forever. The fear, the trust, the moments of danger, and the joy of a safe reunion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the landscape, Jack felt a sense of peace. The girl was safe, her family whole, and he had done what he had set out to do. The forest, once a place of uncertainty and danger, now seemed calm and welcoming. He had faced challenges, made careful decisions, and guided someone through fear to safety. And in doing so, he had proven to himself the true meaning of courage, compassion, and honor. Jack rode on, knowing that life would continue with its challenges and adventures, but carrying with him the lessons of this journey. Trust, kindness, and determination had guided them through, and those same principles would guide him in the days to come. He smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment unlike any he had known before. The journey was over, but its memory would remain forever. A story of bravery, trust, and the power of caring for others.